The station smelled faintly of damp concrete and burnt coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flickering at the edges. People pushed past with earbuds in, jackets zipped tight against the late winter chill that followed them underground. And in that river of strangers, a man with a fraying coat stood frozen near the vending machines, his son tugging at his sleeve. What no one around them knew was that in less than 5 minutes, he would hand away his very last $10 bill, and the woman receiving it, wrapped in a sleek red coat with black leather boots, was not some random commuter. She was a millionaire CEO about to make a decision that could shatter or save his life. Ethan's shoes had holes patched with duct tape, and every time he shifted his weight, he felt the cold seep through his socks. The boy, Daniel, just 8, had a backpack with one strap torn and taped back together, its zipper half broken. Ethan's hair was messy, his face hollow with exhaustion, but his eyes carried a quiet determination that wouldn't let him crumble in front of his son. He reached into his pocket, feeling coins scrape against each other, then smoothed out the single $10 bill he had guarded all week. At home, the fridge buzzed with only a half-empty ketchup bottle and a carton of milk just past expiration. On the door hung an eviction notice curling at the corners, stamped in red letters. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Daniel whispered, his lips trembling. His cheeks were pink from the cold air sneaking down the stairwell. "I know, buddy, just hang on. We'll grab something small." Ethan forced a smile. He scanned the vending machine, pretending to be choosing, but really calculating how to stretch the last of his money until payday, that was still 5 days away. That's when she appeared, not walking with the hurried shuffle of commuters, but with an elegance that made people glance without knowing why. Her long dark hair fell over the collar of a fitted red coat, and a leather handbag hung at her side. Black boots clicked sharply against the tile. She carried herself with an air of someone used to boardrooms and private cars, not subway stations. But her brows were knitted, her phone dead in her hand, and her eyes scanning for something, anything. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice low but clear. "Do you have change for a 20? The machine won't take it, and I need a single-ride ticket. My car broke down and, well, it's been one of those nights." Ethan froze. He glanced at his son, then at the bill in his hand. It wasn't just his last 10. It was all that stood between them and going to bed hungry. His throat tightened, but she was watching, expectant, brushing her hair back with a subtle flick, her lips pressed together in an impatient smile. He swallowed. "Yeah, I think I can help." His voice cracked with quiet shame. He pulled the 10 from his pocket, holding it out. His hands shook slightly, the paper trembling between his fingers. She blinked. "You're sure?" "Yeah, it's fine," he said quickly, though his chest felt hollow. "Here, just take it. The machine should give you change." Her manicured hand brushed against his as she took it, the warmth of her touch striking him for a moment. She gave him a smile, quick, polite, almost dismissive, and turned toward the vending machine. Daniel's eyes followed her, puzzled. "Daddy," he whispered, "that was our last money." "I know," Ethan murmured, his throat tight. "But sometimes people need help." The machine clunked, dispensing her ticket. She turned back, sliding the ticket into her coat pocket. For a heartbeat, she studied him, his shoes, his son's frayed backpack, the way Ethan avoided her gaze. Something flickered across her face, a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Then the crowd surged, and she was swept toward the platform. Ethan stood there, heart pounding. He clenched his fists, suddenly lightheaded. He had nothing now, no money, no food waiting at home. Daniel tugged his arm again. "Daddy, what are we going to eat?" Before he could answer, his stomach twisted with guilt and hunger. He wanted to say something comforting, but the words wouldn't come. He felt the weight of his decision settle like stone in his chest. 3 stops later, he sat on the bench with his boy leaning against his shoulder, their breath visible in the cold air seeping through the tunnels. Ethan shut his eyes. He couldn't shake the image of the woman's red coat vanishing into the crowd, nor the sting of knowing he had given away everything. But what he didn't see was that she hadn't left the station. She lingered at the far end of the platform, her eyes darting back to where he sat. The ticket crumpled in her hand, untouched. Something about that man, about the boy with tired eyes but a dignity that hadn't cracked, unsettled her. She was used to being asked for help, for favors, for money, but no one ever gave her something so real when they had nothing. Her jaw tightened. She took a step toward him, then stopped, uncertainty pulling her back. For once, the woman who commanded boardrooms and staff of hundreds felt strangely unsteady. Her hands fidgeted with the strap of her bag. She glanced once more at the father and son, then turned as the train screeched into the station. The doors opened with a hiss. She hesitated on the threshold, one boot inside, one still on the platform. Her heart pounded louder than the metallic grind of brakes. She could walk away, or she could turn back, and risk being changed by two strangers she would never forget. The train roared as if urging her to decide. With a sharp breath, she stepped back onto the platform, letting the doors close without her. The red coat swayed with the gust as the train pulled away, leaving her alone in the echoing station. Her heels clicked briskly as she approached the bench where Ethan sat, his son curled against him. "Hey," she said softly. Her voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there before. Ethan looked up, startled, his tired eyes searching her face. "You didn't have to give me that money," she continued. She slipped her hand into her bag, fumbling briefly before pulling out a sleek wallet. "You didn't even ask if I could pay you back." Ethan's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's nothing. Just, people get stuck sometimes." The corners of her mouth twitched, almost a smile. "And you?" she asked gently. Her gaze swept over his taped shoes, the boy's backpack, the weariness etched into their faces. "Are you stuck?" He opened his mouth, then shut it, embarrassed. His throat burned. "We're fine," he lied. Daniel stirred, blinking up at her. His voice was small. "Daddy said we'll get food soon." Her chest tightened. She crouched down, her red coat folding around her like a flare against the gray tiles. She looked directly into Daniel's eyes. "What's your favorite food?" "Mac and cheese," he whispered, shy but hopeful. She stood again, straightening with quiet resolve. "Come with me." Ethan shook his head instantly. "No, we can't. I don't. We're not charity." His pride, fragile as it was, stood between him and the invitation. Her eyes locked on his. They were striking, dark and steady, softened by empathy but sharpened by the confidence of a woman used to being obeyed. "I'm not offering charity," she said firmly. "I'm offering dinner for all of us, please." For a moment he wavered, his son's small hand clutching his sleeve. Then hunger won against pride. He nodded, barely. They walked together up the stairs, the icy wind rushing to meet them. Neon signs flickered outside, advertising diners and bars. She led them to a small café on the corner, its windows fogged with warmth. Inside, golden light poured across wooden tables. The contrast almost made Ethan dizzy, the scent of coffee and baked bread against the emptiness he'd carried all day. They slid into a booth. Daniel pressed his hands against the steaming mug of cocoa she ordered for him, his face glowing with relief. Ethan sat stiffly, still uneasy, his fingers tapping the edge of the menu without seeing it. She removed her coat, revealing a simple black blouse tucked into dark jeans, her movements graceful, effortless. Her presence seemed to change the room. The waiters stood straighter. The background chatter softened. Yet she leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand, focusing entirely on Ethan and his son. "My name's Alexandra," she said at last. "What's yours?" "Ethan. And this is Daniel." His voice was guarded, but he met her gaze. The waiter brought plates, mac and cheese for Daniel, a sandwich for Ethan, a salad for her. Daniel dug in eagerly, cheese stretching in golden strings. Ethan hesitated before taking a bite, but when he did, His eyes closed briefly, as though the taste itself reminded him what living felt like. "You're not from around here," Alexandra observed. Ethan sighed. "Moved here last year. Thought I had a steady job lined up. It fell through. Been scraping since." His shoulders slumped. "I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. Just, it's been hard." She listened intently, nodding slightly, her nails drumming softly on the table. "And your wife?" His jaw tightened. He looked away. "Passed when Daniel was 4. Cancer." The word caught in his throat. He swallowed hard. "Been just us since." Daniel glanced up briefly, his eyes wide, then focused back on his food. Alexandra's hand hovered near her glass, her expression softening. A silence stretched, broken only by clinking cutlery and the hiss of the espresso machine. Then she leaned closer. "You gave me your last $10, didn't you?" Ethan blinked. His lips parted, then closed. He said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. Her chest rose slowly with her breath. She reached into her bag again, this time pulling out a small card. She slid it across the table, her manicured finger tapping it once. "I run a company. We need drivers, warehouse staff, and maintenance workers. Stable pay, health insurance, real hours. If you show up tomorrow morning, I'll make sure you get an interview." Ethan stared at the card, the embossed logo gleaming under the cafe lights. His hands trembled. "Why?" he asked hoarsely. "Because no one in my world would ever hand over their last 10 to a stranger," Alexandra replied, her voice firm but kind. "That's the kind of person I want near my team, the kind who gives even when it hurts." His eyes blurred with sudden heat. He rubbed them quickly, embarrassed. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come tomorrow," she answered, a playful smirk softening her intensity. Daniel looked up, his lips shining with cheese. "Daddy, can we?" Ethan nodded slowly, unable to speak. Hours later, when they finally left the cafe, Alexandra walked them to the subway entrance. She pulled her red coat tight around her, the night air biting. Before parting, she pressed a folded bill into Ethan's hand. He tried to refuse, but she closed his fingers over it with surprising firmness. "For tonight," she said, "nothing more." When she turned and strode into the night, her silhouette against the street lamps looked like something out of another world. Ethan watched her go, his son's small hand in his, a weight lifting that had sat on his chest for months. Back in their apartment, the fridge still hummed with emptiness, and the eviction notice still curled on the door. But something had shifted. Ethan placed the business card carefully on the table, next to the folded bill she'd given him. For the first time in a long while, he let himself believe tomorrow could be different. The moral wasn't written anywhere, but it pulsed in Ethan's heart as he watched Daniel finally sleep with a full stomach. A single act of generosity, one given, one received, had rerouted their path. And it reminded him, painfully and beautifully, that in a world often blind to suffering, the smallest choices could save someone's life.